The message arrived on a Tuesday. Dr. Eliza Chen stared at the decoded transmission displayed across her lab's main screen, the characters pulsing softly against the backdrop of stars. The United Earth Space Initiative had intercepted it 3 days ago, a signal originating from HD 219,134, 56 light-years from Earth. They are coming. Hide. Repeated in 27 Earth languages, followed by a cascade of data that defied conventional analysis. The message had been directed specifically at Earth, using frequencies reserved for deep space research. "What do you make of it, Dr. Chen?" Admiral Hayashi's voice crackled through the comm. The Security Council was waiting for her assessment, 6 floors above her subterranean laboratory in Geneva. Eliza brushed a strand of hair from her face, studying the strange harmonics underlying the transmission. "It's authentic, and whoever sent it knows us intimately, knows our languages, our communication protocols, the embedded data." Her voice trailed off as she noticed a pattern in the signal's carrier wave. "The embedded data what, Doctor?" Hayashi prompted. "It's not just a message," she murmured, fingers flying across the holographic interface. "It's a key." She isolated the subsignal, enhancing its amplitude and running it through a specialized filter she'd developed for xenolinguistic pattern recognition. The lab's speakers emitted a low hum that grew progressively higher in pitch. Something inside her brain responded, like a tuning fork suddenly vibrating in sympathy. The last thing Eliza remembered was reaching toward the speaker, her fingers trembling as the sound penetrated her skull like a physical force. She awoke in the medical wing 12 hours later, surrounded by concerned faces and security personnel. When she spoke, the words that emerged weren't English or Mandarin, or any human language. The sounds felt ancient in her mouth, as if her tongue remembered patterns it had never learned. "Quarantine protocols initiated," a security officer announced, his hand moving toward his sidearm. "Wait," said the medical director, studying her vitals. "Her neurological readings are off the charts, but stable. She's not infected. She's changed." Gradually, Eliza regained control of her speech, switching back to English with conscious effort. But something else remained, knowledge that hadn't been there before. Star systems with names that felt like memories. Technologies that seemed as familiar as her own hands. "The signal," she managed to say. "It wasn't warning us about an external threat. It was activating something inside us." By the time Eliza was cleared to return to work, reports were flooding in from around the world. In Cairo, a construction team had unearthed a metallic sphere that liquefied when touched, absorbing their equipment before resinking into the ground. 3 workers who had direct contact reported dreams of stars they couldn't identify. Near Lake Baikal, a 16-year-old girl named Irina had touched an exposed metallic artifact during a school hiking trip. Hours later, she led emergency services to a collapsed mine shaft, somehow perceiving the exact location of 7 trapped miners through 20 meters of solid rock. Military satellites tracked objects moving through the Oort cloud, massive structures accelerating at speeds that violated known physics on direct course for Earth. Their estimated arrival: 6 months. "The artifacts are activation nodes," Eliza explained, standing before the United Earth Security Council. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of recording devices and the occasional nervous shuffling of papers. On the display behind her, a map showed confirmed artifact locations, over 300 discovered in the past week alone, all suddenly emitting low-frequency pulses after millennia of silence. "They're receiving the same signal we intercepted, amplifying it worldwide. And they're targeting specific humans, individuals with certain genetic markers." "What exactly is being activated, Dr. Chen?" asked the Secretary General. Eliza hesitated, aware that her next words would change humanity's understanding of itself forever. She felt a pressure behind her eyes, a fleeting, alien presence that had lurked in her consciousness since her contact with the signal. "Us," she finally said, her eyes momentarily flashing with an inhuman blue light. "They're activating us. And they're doing it because something is coming that only awakened humans can fight. 3 weeks after the signal, the first military containment operation ended in spectacular failure. SEAL Team 7 approached the Amazon artifact under cover of darkness, equipment dampened, communications minimal. Satellite imagery had tracked unusual energy signatures beneath the canopy, consistent with other activation nodes worldwide. Their orders were simple: secure, contain, and if necessary, destroy. At 3:42 hours, all contact with the 12-person team ceased. At dawn, a search helicopter spotted them. Suspended motionless 15 meters above the rainforest canopy, weapons hanging limply at their sides, eyes open but unseeing. The pilot described it later, like they were floating in invisible water, not struggling, just waiting. When retrieved by harnessed medics, the SEALs awakened simultaneously, each manifesting a different ability. Their team leader could manipulate gravity in localized fields. Their communications specialist perceived radio waves visually. Their demolitions expert could alter the atomic structure of non-organic materials by touch. None could explain what had happened during their missing hours. In Seoul, transit operator Min Jun Park was guiding his bus through morning traffic when the glass facade of the Hyundai Tower exploded outward. Without conscious thought, his hands left the steering wheel, extending toward the falling debris that threatened to crush dozens of pedestrians below. Time slowed in a 10-meter radius around him. Glass shards decelerated to a gentle drift. Pedestrians moved through molasses, their expressions of terror frozen in a moment stretched to minutes. Min Jun stepped from his bus, wondering distantly why he could move normally while everything else crawled. He methodically guided people from the danger zone, one by one, their bodies temporarily malleable under his touch as he pulled them to safety. When the time dilation collapsed, emergency services arrived to find Min Jun standing amid unharmed civilians, surrounded by a perfect circle of destruction, the border where his influence had ended. Similar incidents multiplied globally, following no discernible pattern of geography, gender, age, or occupation. A lighthouse keeper in Nova Scotia projected an energy shield that saved a fishing fleet from a freak tsunami. A kindergartner in Lagos filled an entire notebook with schematics for an engine that could manipulate quantum fields, drawings too complex for any child, yet precisely annotated in her blocky handwriting. In Geneva, Dr. Chen observed the avalanche of data with growing unease. The rate of awakenings was increasing exponentially, but without pattern. Governments scrambled to identify and contain the awakened, but for every person detained, 3 more manifested abilities. "We need to understand the mechanism," she told her hastily assembled research team. "The artifacts are catalysts, but what exactly are they triggering in our DNA?" The answer required a risk. Against protocols, Elisa secured a fragment from the Caro artifact, a sliver of material that defied conventional analysis, neither metal nor crystal, but something that seemed to shift between states. In her private lab, secured against monitoring, she placed the fragment against her temple. The separation was instantaneous, her consciousness detaching from her body, expanding outward like a wave. She perceived her physical form below, a biological shell housing something far greater. In this expanded state, Elisa accessed genetic memories buried in junk DNA, sequences dormant since humanity's engineered creation. She saw Earth as it had been 50,000 years ago, home to the precursors who had seeded the planet with monuments to their civilization before fleeing the hegemony's systematic extermination. The truth unfolded with terrible clarity. Humans weren't random evolutionary products, but carefully designed vessels, carrying within them the compressed consciousness and capabilities of a species that had once commanded the stars. When her awareness snapped back into her body, Elisa understood what the signal had meant. The hegemony hadn't come for Earth's resources or territory. They had come to finish what they'd started millennia ago, the complete eradication of precursor influence from the galaxy. and humanity was the last remaining trace. The hegemony arrived during the longest solar eclipse in recorded history, a convergence that astronomers would later recognize as deliberate. Their vessels appeared simultaneously in geosynchronous positions around Earth, casting shadows that darkened cities already plunged into unnatural twilight. Global communications failed as electromagnetic disruption cascaded through satellites and undersea cables. When the blackout lifted 17 minutes later, every electronic device on the planet, from military command screens to children's toys, displayed the same message, translated through algorithms that struggled with the concepts they conveyed. Surrender the precursor technology. Submit to quarantine procedures. Resistance ensures extinction. In the emergency session that followed, the United Nations Security Council debated options that no human government had ever contemplated: the terms of humanity's surrender, or the logistics of fighting an interstellar war with weapons that couldn't penetrate the hulls of the alien vessels. Dr. Chen offered a third option. "We send a diplomatic mission," she said, standing before the assembled leaders. "Not conventional diplomats, awakened ones, including myself. We need to understand what we're facing before we decide how to respond." The approach to the hegemony mothership revealed its true scale, a structure that dwarfed human engineering, stretching 23 kilometers from end to end. The vessel wasn't constructed so much as grown, its surface rippling occasionally like the membrane of some vast organism. Inside the shuttle, Dr. Chen sat with her hastily assembled team. Hannah Reeves, an accountant whose genetic screening had shown unusually high precursor markers. Major Tenzin, a Tibetan officer who had developed limited telepathic abilities. Dr. Okafor, a Nigerian physicist who could perceive quantum states. Lieutenant Kim, a Korean pilot with extraordinary spatial awareness. And Professor Alvarez, a linguistics expert with accelerated neural processing. None had experienced their awakenings more than 2 weeks ago. All were terrified. "Remember," Chen said as the shuttle entered the designated docking field, "we're not just representing Earth. We're representing the last legacy of the precursors. Whatever you perceive, whatever you feel, don't suppress it. Those instincts might save us all." The receiving chamber defied human architectural understanding. Spaces that seemed to fold inward upon themselves, materials that existed partially in dimensions beyond normal perception. The diplomatic team walked on surfaces that adjusted to their mass, through atmospheres that shifted composition to match their physiology. The hegemony representatives waited in a central amphitheater, not the humanoids they had subconsciously expected, but a coalition of utterly alien forms. Crystal lattices that pulsed with internal light, vapor phase intelligences contained in electromagnetic fields, biomechanical constructs that combined organic and technological components in ways human science couldn't comprehend. Their primary speaker addressed the humans through what appeared to be a translated field, human words forming in the air before dissolving. "You have concealed your true nature," the accusation hung between them. "Our scans detect precursor technology integrated with your biological systems. Explain this violation of the Terminus Accords." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "We don't know what you mean by Terminus Accords. Our civilization has no record of prior contact with the hegemony." A ripple passed through the assembled aliens, something like agitation or disbelief. "Impossible. The precursor consciousness cannot be eliminated from its vessels without destroying the vessels themselves. You are either lying, or you have been." The translation field struggled momentarily. "Compartmentalized. Either outcome violates our laws." Major Tenzin stiffened suddenly, his eyes widening. "Dr. Chen," he whispered, "they're scanning us. Not just physically, mentally. And they're afraid of us." The revelation came too late. As a hegemony crystalline entity approached Dr. Chen, its scan penetrated her mental defenses and recoiled violently at what it discovered. Abomination. The translation field pulsed red. "The vessels have achieved consciousness integration. Maximum containment protocol activated." The chamber sealed, Radiation alarms shrieked on the team's environmental monitors. As death closed in, Hannah Reeves, the unassuming accountant with no previously demonstrated abilities, screamed in primal terror. The universe bent around them. Hannah Reeves collapsed the moment they materialized in the United Nations courtyard, blood streaming from her nose and ears. The diplomatic team's sudden appearance, directly from the Hegemony mothership, sent security forces into chaos. Medical personnel rushed to stabilize Hannah, while military officials surrounded the others, weapons drawn. "Stand down," Dr. Chen ordered, her voice carrying an authority that hadn't been there before. "The Hegemony has declared war. We have minutes, not hours." 17 minutes later, the first attack came. Beijing vanished from satellite feeds as energy lanced from the nearest Hegemony vessel. Global defense systems registered the weapon's power at levels that should have atomized everything within a 30-kilometer radius. Instead, live footage showed a shimmering dome encompassing the city center, created by thousands of ordinary citizens whose latent abilities had activated simultaneously in the moment of crisis. The collective shield held for 9 excruciating minutes before collapsing, leaving the defenders unconscious but the city largely intact. Mumbai wasn't so fortunate. The second strike hit before any organized defense could form. 8 million lives extinguished in an instant of terrible light. But from the devastation emerged something unexpected. A squad of railway workers and street vendors, office clerks and students, their bodies transformed by trauma and necessity. They moved through the ruins with purpose, their skin glowing with internal energy. When a Hegemony landing craft descended to confirm the destruction, they swarmed it, their combined abilities transmuting its whole material to brittle glass that shattered under its own weight. The Mumbai Defense Force, as they would later be known, salvaged the crashed ship's technology and disappeared into the countryside, beginning the first organized human resistance. Dr. Chen worked from a mobile laboratory hidden beneath the Amazon rainforest, the same region where SEAL Team 7 had experienced their awakening. The location wasn't coincidental. The density of artifact energy there provided cover from Hegemony sensors while accelerating her team's research. The awakenings follow a pattern, she explained to General Santos, the former Brazilian Special Forces commander now coordinating global defense. On her display, a worldwide map showed thousands of activation points pulsing in complex rhythms. Not random at all. They're creating a neural network, humans with complementary abilities awakening in strategic proximity to each other. Santos studied the pattern with military precision. Can we predict who will awaken next? Direct it somehow. Better, Chen replied, manipulating the display to reveal DNA sequencing. We can accelerate it. The CERN facility had been converted from particle physics research to the front line of humanity's genetic revolution. Its massive underground accelerator, originally designed to investigate fundamental forces, now served to enhance the dormant precursor DNA sequences in selected volunteers. Dr. Chen supervised the process personally, analyzing results from the first controlled awakenings. Each subject manifested abilities that complemented those already present in their geographic region. A bus driver in Chile who could manipulate gravity working in perfect tandem with a Vietnamese farmer who could strengthen molecular bonds, despite neither having knowledge of the other's existence. It's as if the precursor DNA is communicating across vast distances, Chen told her research team, creating exactly the abilities needed for a coordinated defense. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While examining artifact fragments through an electron microscope, Chen noticed patterns that matched human brainwave signatures during dreaming states. The revelation struck her with physical force. The artifacts aren't just activation nodes, she whispered. They're dreaming. And they're dreaming us. The Hegemony attack on CERN began without warning. Precision strikes designed to eliminate humanity's research before it could threaten them. As the facility's outer defenses failed, Chen made her decision. The experimental activation chamber was designed for controlled exposure, but there was no time for safety protocols. She sealed herself inside and initiated maximum bombardment. Dr. Chen emerged from the activation chamber transformed. Luminescent patterns crisscrossed her skin like living circuitry, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The CER and staff backed away as she stepped forward, her movements unnaturally precise, her eyes reflecting light at frequencies beyond normal human perception. "The hegemony shifts," she said, her voice overlaid with harmonic undertones. "I can see their operational matrices." She extended her hand toward a display showing the attacking vessels. The nearest ship's weapon systems abruptly failed, energy signatures flickering and dying. The remaining hegemony craft retreated immediately, as if recognizing a threat they hadn't anticipated. 3 days later, the phenomenon that would reshape the war began. Julia Morales, a baker in Croatia, collapsed during her morning bread preparation. Customers found her convulsing on the floor, eyes rolled back, speaking a language no human had heard in 50 millennia. When she regained consciousness 9 hours later, she possessed complete knowledge of faster-than-light propulsion mechanics, explaining complex equations to bewildered physicists who scrambled to record her suddenly ephemeral expertise. In Tokyo, teenage gamer Hiro Tanaka seizured during a livestream, his viewers watching in horror as he fell unconscious, then reawakened speaking only in precursor language patterns, his neural pathways temporarily overwritten by another consciousness. Military linguists required 3 days to establish basic communication, by which time he had begun to recover his own personality, but retained fragments of memory from a precursor navigator who had once mapped star systems humans hadn't yet discovered. Similar cases emerged globally. Humans whose genetic structure granted them complete access to specific precursor memory fragments. Unlike the controlled awakenings that manifested abilities, these episodes were chaotic, often physically damaging to the host. Each memory keeper, as they came to be called, returned with knowledge from a different precursor specialist. Crucial information that arrived randomly, often incompletely, and at tremendous cost to the bearer. Dr. Chen established protocol anamnesis at a fortified facility beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. Here, memory keepers underwent controlled extraction procedures to safely recover precursor knowledge without destroying their original personalities. "The process is a psychological battlefield," she explained to the United Defense Council, her skin still glowing faintly from her own transformation. Human consciousness fighting for dominance against precursor memory fragments. The adult mind instinctively resists this invasion, causing conflict that damages both. The breakthrough emerged from an unexpected source. 6-year-old Amara Osai, the youngest identified memory keeper. Unlike adult hosts who experienced the precursor memories as alien intrusions, Amara formed a cooperative relationship with her precursor counterpart, a specialist in consciousness transfer. Together, they developed the template for a neural interface that allowed controlled access without conflict. "She's not fighting the memories," Chen observed, watching Amara calmly drawing complex neural pathway diagrams. "She's collaborating with them." With the neural interface, humanity accelerated technological development exponentially. Abandoned factories retooled to produce gravity weapons based on recovered knowledge. Fishing vessels retrofitted with stealth systems that bent light around their hulls. University laboratories synthesized materials that could penetrate hegemony shields by existing partially in alternate dimensional states. But the memory keepers paid a terrible price. Each access physically aged them, cellular degradation accelerating with every extraction. Their bodies simply weren't designed to channel such vast knowledge, despite their genetic predisposition. The hegemony, recognizing the existential threat posed by humanity's rapid advancement, deployed their ultimate weapon, a planet killer that had reduced 16 precursor worlds to asteroid fields. As the massive construct emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter, 27 memory keepers gathered at the Antarctic facility for a desperate gamble. "We need to access the complete memory of the precursor defense network," Dr. Chen told them. "Not fragments. The entire system." "The strain will kill us," said Hiro Tanaka, Now barely recognizable as the teenager he had been months earlier, his body aged decades by repeated extractions. Yes, Chen acknowledged. But everyone else will live. The 27 memory keepers succeeded. As the hegemony planet killer charged its main weapon, a previously unknown defense grid activated throughout the solar system. Phantom technology that had lain dormant in comets, asteroids, and planetary moons for 50 millennia. The convergent energy field neutralized the planet killer, reducing the massive construct to its component atoms in a silent flash visible from Earth as a new temporary star. Only 3 memory keepers survived the complete neural integration, Chen among them. They emerged fundamentally altered, their eyes glowing with the combined consciousness of humans and precursors unify for the first time. When they spoke, it was with layered voices that resonated on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "We are the Triads," they announced to the United Defense Council. Not fully human, not fully precursor, but a third state of being. 1 year into the war, humanity had evolved beyond recognition. The sporadic abilities of the early awakenings had developed into sophisticated skill sets. The global neural network coordinated defense with increasing efficiency. Refugee camps transformed into innovation centers, where awakened engineers built technologies that defied conventional physics. Children born during the conflict awakened spontaneously, their abilities more integrated and instinctive than those of adults who had to overcome established neural pathways. A 10-year-old born 2 months after first contact could manipulate quantum fields with the casual ease of a child building sandcastles. The Triads unveiled Operation Prometheus, humanity's first true offensive against the hegemony. Using recovered technology and enhanced by thousands of awakened engineers, they had converted an abandoned hegemony destroyer into Earth's first interstellar warship. "The Prometheus isn't just a vessel," explained Triad Tanaka, the former teenager now an amalgamation of human creativity and precursor knowledge. "It's a message. We're no longer fighting for survival alone, but for our place among the stars." The ship's commander, Captain Miguel Santos, had been chosen for his unique ability, perceiving tactical probabilities across multiple timelines simultaneously. His consciousness existed partially outside conventional time, allowing him to see the outcomes of decisions before making them. "We won't target their command structure," Santos told his crew during the final briefing. "They expect that. Instead, we'll strike where they're vulnerable. Their supply network. The hegemony conquers through overwhelming force, but that approach requires constant resupply across vast distances." The Prometheus launched under cover of a coordinated distraction, awakened technopaths, temporarily disabling hegemony sensors throughout the solar system. The ship transitioned to hyperspace using equations no human mathematician could have derived 6 months earlier. Its first target, a fuel processing station orbiting a gas giant in the Barnard's star system. The Prometheus emerged from hyperspace employing quantum twinning, a technology beyond even the hegemony's understanding, appearing simultaneously at 6 different points around the station. Before the defenders could respond, specialized strike teams teleported aboard. Not soldiers, but ordinary humans with extraordinary abilities working in precisely coordinated pairs. A former librarian who could perceive structural weaknesses partnered with a carpenter who could alter material density. A taxi driver with chronokinetic abilities worked alongside a surgeon who could sever energy conduits with thought-directed precision. The station fell in 17 minutes. The Prometheus departed, leaving behind awakened human agents who blended into the station's subjugated alien workforce, the first seeds of a wider rebellion. Similar strikes followed, each targeting a different component of hegemony infrastructure. Not simple destruction, but strategic dismantling, taking what humanity needed while seeding resistance among oppressed species who recognized in these human attackers something the hegemony had spent millennia trying to eradicate: the capacity to evolve beyond one's limitations. After the 6th successful operation, Captain Santos proposed his most audacious plan yet, allowing himself to be captured to spread misinformation about a non-existent human attack fleet. "They'll execute me," he acknowledged to the Triads. "Not you," Triad Chen responded. "Only a projection of you." Captain Santos's gambit succeeded brilliantly. His consciousness projection was captured, interrogated, and executed by hegemony commanders, while his physical body remained safely aboard the Prometheus, directing further strikes against their supply network. The deception caused the hegemony to divert substantial forces to defend against a phantom human fleet, creating vulnerabilities the real Prometheus exploited with surgical precision. Victory seemed possible until Dr. Chen, still partially merged with her Triad consciousness, intercepted and decoded a hegemony quantum transmission. What humanity had been fighting was merely a fraction of hegemony power. The main Armada, a force that had conquered 16 galaxies, had altered course toward Earth. Estimated arrival: 3 months. Even with humanity's accelerated advancement, such overwhelming force would prove insurmountable. The Triads convened in their Antarctic sanctuary, searching their combined knowledge for solutions. They found only fragments, references to a final precursor refuge that might contain technologies beyond what they had already recovered. Then Chen began experiencing dreams, precise coordinates in the Mariana Trench, recurring with increasing intensity each night. The other Triads reported no such visions. "It's calling specifically to you," Triad Osi observed, her child's face now housing awareness far beyond her years. "Your human consciousness has a unique resonance with whatever waits there." The expedition departed in a submarine enhanced by awakened engineers, capable of withstanding pressures that would have crushed conventional vessels. Chen led a team including Captain Santos, Hannah Reeves, whose teleportation abilities had evolved to unprecedented precision, and 3 specialists selected for their complementary perceptual abilities. The descent through midnight waters became increasingly strange. At certain depths, the team experienced simultaneous hallucinations, coral formations that resembled alien architecture, bioluminescent patterns that formed themselves into precursor scripts. Below 8,000 meters, their instruments detected energy signatures that shouldn't exist at such depths. At 10,927 meters, beyond the trench's previously measured maximum, they encountered the first Guardian system. A biological scanner analyzed their DNA through the submarine's hull, its energy tendrils probing each crew member in sequence. "It's verifying our precursor markers," Chen explained as the scanner lingered on her longest, "confirming we carry the legacy." The scanner retreated, and a passage opened in what had appeared to be solid rock. Beyond lay a series of increasingly elaborate security measures, psionic barriers that tested their mental resilience, temporal locks that required solving paradoxes, and finally, a quantum gate keyed to emotional signatures rather than physical ones. "It requires sacrifice," Chen realized, studying the patterns. "Not of life, but of something equally precious." She placed her hands on the shimmering barrier and surrendered a cherished memory. Her mother's face on the day Chen received her doctorate, a moment of pure pride and love. The memory dissolved from her mind as the barrier accepted it, recognizing genuine human emotion as the final key. What they discovered defied comprehension: a vast precursor city preserved in a bubble of altered space-time, where a day outside equaled mere seconds within. The architecture combined biological and technological elements in ways that made the distinction meaningless, structures that seemed to think and breathe, while machines appeared almost alive. At the city's heart waited Axiom, the last living precursor, sustained in stasis for 50,000 years. The being's form challenged human perception, simultaneously insectoid, avian, and cetacean, with appendages that existed partially in dimensions humans couldn't fully perceive. As Axiom awoke, its consciousness brushed against theirs, causing half the team to collapse from the psychic pressure. Chen alone remained standing, her triad nature allowing her to withstand the contact. "You return at last," Axiom communicated, not in words but directly into Chen's mind. "The children come home in their hour of need." Through a painful mind meld that left Chen's consciousness raw and expanded, Axiom revealed the complete truth. The precursors hadn't created humans as mere vessels or weapons, but as evolutionary successors, children designed to surpass their creators in ways the precursors themselves couldn't imagine. We recognized our limitations. Axiom communicated, images and concepts flooding Chen's mind faster than language could convey. Our species achieved technological perfection, but remained psychologically flawed. We couldn't transcend our drive for domination, our fear of difference. The precursors had engineered humanity with genetic locks, developmental safeguards ensuring humans wouldn't access powers they weren't ethically prepared to wield. The hegemony's return had been calculated to occur precisely when humanity would be ready for full awakening, the external threats serving as the catalyst for potential that might otherwise have remained dormant for millennia. Axiom guided Chen to the precursor's final legacy, a quantum crystalline structure containing the complete template for human evolution. When activated, it would trigger complete awakening in every human simultaneously. But understand the cost, Axiom warned. Complete awakening means the death of humanity as you know it and birth of something entirely new, a transformation as fundamental as the leap from single-celled organisms to complex life. Chen returned to Earth's last unified command center with Axiom and the crystalline key to find human civilization on the brink of collapse. The hegemony vanguard had arrived ahead of schedule, deploying reality-warping weapons that selectively erased matter from existence. Billions were already dead. The remaining awakened humans fought with desperate creativity, but were overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the attack. Chen presented 3 options to the Emergency Council: full species transcendence that would end humanity as they knew it, targeted awakening of an elite few who might defeat the hegemony, but create a permanent genetic class division, or continuing the current path of gradual awakening that would almost certainly end in extinction. The debate fractured along predictable lines until Hannah Reeves, the former accountant whose teleportation abilities had saved the First Contact team, proposed an unexpected 4th option. Why choose? She asked, studying the crystalline key. The precursors always sought singular, perfect solutions. That was their limitation. But humanity's strength is our diversity, our ability to find multiple paths forward simultaneously. Her plan was breathtaking in its audacity and quintessentially human in its rejection of binary choices. As the main hegemony armada entered the solar system, thousands of ships darkening Earth's skies, humanity implemented what they called the Mosaic Protocol. Rather than a uniform transformation, each human received one fragment of the complete evolutionary template, activating different aspects in different individuals. The initial hegemony attack stuttered as their sensors struggled to comprehend what humanity had become. Instead of a single evolutionary pathway, humans had split into thousands, each complementary to the others, but impossible to target collectively. The battle that followed defied conventional description. Artists created illusions so perfect they fooled targeting systems. Mathematicians collectively computed vulnerabilities in shield harmonics faster than adaptive algorithms could respond. Children coordinated defense grids that adults implemented with precision. At the height of the conflict, Chen led a small team, including Axiom, directly onto the hegemony command ship. There, they confronted the Archon Council, ancient intelligences that had directed the hegemony for millennia. Rather than attacking, Chen demonstrated humanity's choice through direct mind link, showing how humans had chosen diversity over uniformity, cooperation over domination, and evolution with purpose over raw power. The revelation fractured the hegemony from within. Several member species, long subjugated by the Archons, recognized in humanity's Mosaic approach a path to their own liberation. Civil war erupted among the hegemony forces, with defectors protecting Earth from loyalists. 5 years later, Chen stood on the observation deck of humanity's first diplomatic vessel to the former hegemony capital, her body transformed by partial transcendence, skin etched with luminescent circuitry, perception extending across multiple dimensions. Beside her stood Hannah Reeves, appearing entirely human except for eyes that occasionally flickered with starlight. Did we make the right choice? Chen asked, watching the approaching alien world. The precursors would have chosen complete transformation. Hannah smiled, gesturing to the diverse crew, each carrying a unique fragment of humanity's potential. We chose to remain human, she replied. Every possible version of human simultaneously. That's something even the precursors couldn't imagine. As their ship entered orbit, a message arrived from Earth. The first child born after the Mosaic Protocol had manifested an ability never seen in precursors or any known species, the capacity to heal reality itself, repairing damage caused by millennia of cosmic war. We were never meant to be our creators reborn, Chen realized, understanding at last. We were meant to be their redemption.